I thank the representative of Denmark for the statement. I now give the floor to the permanent observer of the Observer State of Palestine.
Madam President, allow me at the outset to thank you for convening this briefing and for your decision to preside over it, and also thank the Deputy Prime Ministers and Foreign Ministers of Jordan and Pakistan, and also the Foreign Ministers of Egypt and Indonesia for participating in this meeting. Allow me also to thank the three briefers. I would also like to thank the Arab and Muslim countries, including the mediators, for their mobilizing the support for the cause of Palestine and their participation in this important meeting. Madam President, today is the first day of Ramadan, the holy month that should be a month of peace and spiritual reflection. But Palestinians in occupied Palestine are sadly stripped from their ability to live their faith freely and peacefully. From the centuries-old Christian and Muslim houses of worships destroyed, to the assault on Al-Haram al-Sharif and Al-Haram al-Ibrahimi, to the military checkpoints and restrictions against Muslims and Christians' pilgrimage, there is no peace anywhere, anytime. The Holy Land, sacred for the three monotheistic religions, yearns for peace and remains deprived of it. Madam President, Israel's goal has been for a while now to remove the Palestinian people, to seize Palestinian land. The scale and the pace have changed dramatically, but the tools and the objectives are the same. Settlements and settler terrorism, land expropriation and diverse excuses and house demolitions, the takeover of land registration, all to serve that ultimate objective, annexation. Madam President, Palestine belongs to the Palestinian people. It is not up for grabs, and it is not for sale. It is not a land without a people. And despite all its efforts, Israel will not transform us into a people without a land. The latest Israeli decisions mean we have reached the end of the road. Now annexation is in full display. Unchallenged, it will define our region's future and doom it. It will also redefine the world we live in. Whatever the Israeli foreign minister will claim today, you all know the truth. This Israeli government considers us alien to our own land, refuses to recognize our existence as a nation. It claims to be defending civilization by oppressing us and denying us our fundamental rights. It might think, why does the world care about the fate of the barbarians? There is something fundamentally racist about this colonial narrative underlying all these illegal policies. The foreign minister is also too late. His colleagues have already confessed. Finance Minister Smotrich stated, and I quote, "We are strengthening our grip on the territory and killing the idea of establishing a Palestinian state in the heart of the country." As a true racist and extremist, he called this Palestinian state an Arab terrorist state. The foreign minister himself in 2023, after the 7th of October, declared, and I quote, "Gaza must be smaller by the end of the war. First, it's a security matter. Second, because this is the price of loss that the Arabs understand, the price that the Arabs understand. Madam President, yesterday the world mobilized at the United Nations to condemn and reject the Israeli measures towards annexation. Over 100 states and organizations have joined a statement to that effect. All 15 council members have expressed their opposition to annexation. Annexation is a breach of the UN Charter and of the most fundamental rules of international law and of UN resolutions, including those of this Council. It strikes at the heart of the New York Declaration. It is a breach of President Trump's plan and constitutes an existential threat to ongoing peace efforts. The Security Council has a duty to act, and all states who are seeking peace must act. What does it tell us that Israel doubles down on annexation despite international rejection and outrage days before the meeting of the Board of Peace in Washington, and while the US administration, regional and international actors are seeking to consolidate the fragile ceasefire in Gaza? The same ceasefire Israel is undermining by killing Palestinians, restricting humanitarian aid and access, hampering the proper functioning of the Rafah crossing, and opposing the natural role of the Palestinian government in Gaza. Let me be clear. We welcomed President Trump's peace plan. For us, it was about saving lives through the ceasefire and by ending famine. It was to ensure, as the plan states, that there will be no annexation, no occupation, and no forcible displacement. We hope these would be the first steps towards the exercise by the Palestinian people of their right to self-determination, including their right to their independent state, leading to peace, as stated by the plan. Madam President, the ceasefire agreement saved lives, Palestinian and Israeli lives. President Trump, through the ceasefire, delivered the release of the Israeli hostages. But the agony of the Palestinian people is very far from over. Israel does not want a ceasefire. Its goals remain occupation, annexation, and forcible displacement. In Gaza now, split in two, and in the West Bank, including East Jerusalem. The question before us is clear. Israel had to choose between annexation and peace. I repeat, Israel has to choose between annexation and peace. Does it choose annexation? We all reject annexation. So how are we going to stop Israel? The Israeli government is moving fast. It hopes to be done before the world mounts a proper response. It will pretend to give in from time to time tactically and pursue land grab strategically. And if not confronted, it will impose its will on all. This is delusional. Palestinians have been confined in smaller and smaller spaces, but they have not disappeared. Their numbers kept growing. So now, Israel speaks of control from the river to the sea, a space in which there are 7.5 million Palestinians. What does it intend to do with them exactly? Provide them with equal rights? I doubt it. Or make their lives impossible through death, devastation, and displacement in the hope they will be convinced there is no life possible in their ancestral land? And will we all watch while it tries? Madam President, the Israeli government is seeking an explosion in the West Bank. It is frustrated it has not yet occurred. In its mind, it would allow it to go all the way. That is why it is taking these decisions. That is why it is conducting military incursions and allowing and facilitating settlers' violence, forcibly displacing communities and destroying refugee camps. That is why it is extremists are invading Al-Haram al-Sharif, and why Ben Gvir passed a law to execute Palestinian prisoners and films scenes of humiliation and abuse against them. That is why Israel is stealing our financial and natural resources. That is why it is attacking and undermining the Palestinian Authority, a Palestinian Authority committed to peace and to the two-state solution in accordance with the relevant UN resolutions, and that is cooperating with all regional and international peace efforts. Israel seeks our collapse or expulsion, vacuum or violence, or rather vacuum and violence. Anything that would allow it to liquidate the Palestinian question, unconscious, it would be running to its own doom. The only response is to assert in words and actions that the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, including East Jerusalem, constitute the territorial unit of the state of Palestine, and their political and geopolitical unity should not be delayed any longer. The Palestinian government must be empowered in implementing its policy of one state, one law, one weapon. It may be worth reminding Israel that it is sitting here in these United Nations based on a commitment to respect Resolution 181 on the two-state solution and Resolution 1994 on the rights of Palestine refugees. That is how it was granted membership. It enjoys the rights and privileges of this membership without ever honoring the responsibilities and commitments that come with it. And while showing only disdain and contempt for the UN Charter, UN resolutions, UN bodies, and UN representatives, and while attacking UN agencies, notably UNRWA, and while assaulting and killing UN personnel and peacekeepers, and destroying UN buildings and infrastructure. Till when? Till when we are going to continue to tolerate all of that? Madam President, Palestine, notably Gaza, is ground zero of the assault on international law. What is accepted there is normalized everywhere. The two-state solution must not become the two-state illusion. If you believe it is the only way forward, then you must end the occupation and save the Palestinian state to save peace. After 80 years of Nakba, decades of military and colonial occupation, after the 7th of October and the genocide in Gaza, we must finally make peace. We condemn the killing of civilians, whether Palestinians or Israelis. I repeat, we condemn the killing of civilians, whether Palestinians or Israelis, but we have a far greater duty to stop the killing. Palestinians must be free. Palestine must be free. Palestinians must be free as they are not less worthy of life and liberty than any other people. And Palestinians and Israelis must be able to live in peace. Act now for freedom, justice, and peace. And I thank you very much, Madam President.
I thank the Permanent Observer of the Observer State of Palestine for the statement. I now give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Gideon Saar, Minister for Foreign Affairs of Israel.
Thank you, Madam President, distinguished ministers, council members. I come here today as the Foreign Minister of the Jewish state in our ancestral homeland, the land of Israel. First, let me say it was quite amusing to hear the representatives of the Russian Federation speak about the law and international law, about occupation, land expansion, and peaceful resolution. I must admit, I had to restrain myself from laughing out loud. Ladies and gentlemen, around 4,000 years ago, our patriarch Abraham lived and walked in ancient Hebron, Beersheba, and Beit El. Over 3,000 years ago, King David established Jerusalem as our capital. Jewish presence in the land of Israel, even throughout our long exile, has never ceased for even a day. In the history of nations and states, this is probably the clearest case of proven and documented historic rights of any nation to any land. Amazingly, there are so many powers trying to replace historical truth with modern lies. The truth is simple. We are the indigenous people in the land of Israel. The archaeological findings in our ancient sites, including the city of David, the Western Wall tunnels, and others, tell the history of our land. This jug handle is from the kingdom of Judea, 2,700 years ago. It has a stamp of the Jewish king on it. This coin, this little coin, from nearly 2,000 years ago, says freedom for Zion. Found in the Judean desert, it was minted during the second year of the great Jewish revolt against the Romans. How can Jewish presence in our ancient homeland violate international law? It's a contradiction in terms. Madam Secretary, in 1917, the British government issued the historic Balfour Declaration in order to re-establish a national home for the Jewish people in our land. The same places, in the heart of our ancient homeland, you claim the Jews are forbidden to live in, and that allegedly violate international law, you recognized as belonging to national home for the Jewish people. I want to present a map of the British mandate, but I'll first make a disclaimer for the Jordanian foreign minister I know is about to come. We have no claim over Transjordan. I want it to be clear. But this is